Hello, my name is Luke, and you have entered the world, once again, of Wrestling with Evil. I know it's been 8 months, people, but hey, I'm sorry, I'm only human. But today, I got something exciting for you guys. The worst Resident Evil games to the best Resident Evil games. This is a list, and this is my own personal opinion. So, hey, if you guys hate me, please leave it down in the comments. Let's get started. Number 24. This game is called Umbrella Corps. Honestly, this game is complete shit. It sucks. It's basically a glorified action game, but it's really not Call of Duty. It's not anything. It's completely unplayable. Don't even pick it up. Don't even play it. It's not worth it. Actually, this shouldn't even be number 24. It should only be a list of 23 because this game's fucking garbage. Number 23, it is called Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D. Now, this game, it's not really a complete game to me. It was released for the Nintendo 3DS. It wasn't really... honestly, in my opinion, it should have been attached to a Resident Evil game. But it had a lot of pretty cool characters, but I definitely won't consider it a Resident Evil game. It was just kind of like a side game for the 3DS. So, hey, you know what? It's alright for, I guess, what it is, but definitely not top anything material, honestly. The only reason why I had it above Umbrella Corps because Umbrella Corps is a piece of shit. So, there you go. Number 22. This is Resident Evil Gaiden. Pretty much, it takes place on a boat. You play as either Leon or Barry. It's cool that Barry's in the game. The only problem is, this game has shitty mechanics. It's not really... it doesn't really work that well. It's really slow, kind of clunky. When you shoot an enemy, the bullet goes like that, and it doesn't really contact the enemy. It goes from like shooting a zombie to to this little bar thing. It's some sort of mini game, and you have to aim it in the middle. It's just kind of a stupid game, and that's why I put it so low on this list. All right, number 21. This is Resident Evil Survivor 2, not the first one, 2, because this one really isn't that great. It was the first PS2 release. But the problem is that it had light gun support, so you couldn't really play it that well with the controller, which kind of sucks. Nobody wants that, and it was basically like Resident Evil Code Veronica, but it was shitty. There was no voice acting. It didn't really follow the source material that well. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't prefer to play it. I don't prefer to play it. Let's move on to number 20. This is Resident Evil Survivor number 1. The reason why I'm putting this so low on the list was because it still had light gun support, so you couldn't really play it as desired with just the regular old, controller. And but this game had great storytelling. The monsters are really cool. Like, you had this monkey-looking dude with a face mask on, like an apocalypse mask or a biohazard mask, and it was really cool. I wasn't really that interested in it per se. I don't really like gun shooters. I like rail shooters, but only if it has like some way to play it that's kind of mainstreamed. This game was good for its time, I guess. If you were playing with a controller, you had nothing else. It was for the PS1. Number 19. What can I say about Resident Evil Raccoon City? It was an alright multiplayer, it was online, you could have fun with it, but the problem was that everything was kind of hard. The lickers seemed like it took a million things of ammo and handgun ammo and shotgun ammo to kill the fucking things. It doesn't make any sense. And, the ending is crap. Why do you have to kill Leon? Why? He was the protagonist in the second one. Why do you have to kill the most popular character in the series? Doesn't make any sense to me. And let's talk about something that I really fucking hate about this game. Even though it's better than the other ones before it, let's talk about how Nemesis says stars. He sounds like a computer-generated asshole. And who needs that? I would rather have it be like stars than stars. You know what I mean? It just sounds stupid. Let's move on. Number 18. What can I say about Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles? It's a good game. It's fun to play by yourself to a point. It's more fun to play with other people, but the only problem with it is that it rehashes the same thing a little bit too on point. I mean, I would rather have things be a little bit different. You know, they have the zombies, they have the Crimson Heads, and that's all fine and dandy, but when you get down to the meat of things, it just, every enemy kind of looks the same as they did in Resident Evil 1 Remake. And, you know, it was introduced to the Wii, and it was fun, but, you know, I mean, I don't know. There's not much I can really say about it. Have you ever wondered what it's like to play a Resident Evil game based on, you know, a boat? Well, Resident Evil Dead Aim is your game, I think. I mean, you know, you don't really need a light gun shooter for this game, but you can play it by itself too, and it's still pretty decent. Yeah, and the main protagonist's name is Bruce, I don't know, something, Bruce Springsteen. I think it might be Bruce Jenner. I'm not sure, but you know, every room kind of looks the same, and that's the problem that I have with this game. I mean, it's the same pattern every room. You can't really go from place to place and know exactly where you are. It's not that great, but the good thing about the game is that the final boss battle is actually really fucking good. So definitely check this game out. It's not bad. Well, have you guys ever played Outbreak 1? I'm sorry to spoil it. I know you guys like Outbreak so much, but Outbreak File 1. The problem is there really is no playing one player in this game. It's really, really, really fucking hard. Like, it's so hard to even, you know, have the computer do what you want, or have I don't think the computer can even give you items, like good items, that they pick up. But, when the game first came out, it was on PS2. So there were a lot of online problems. Not a lot of people had a modem or a router that they could use. So basically a lot of people kind of missed out on the main features that was multiplayer on the game. But I mean, there are actually servers out now that you can play the game online, but I haven't had a chance to do that. So I'm gonna rate this a little bit lower on the list. Sorry about that, but and also I feel like, because I've watched gameplay of this game, I feel like the enemies are kind of generic. It's pretty much the same stuff, just different models used for the enemies, and you know, you play as random characters that don't have anything to do with the storyline. It's I don't know. It is what it is. Outbreak File number 2. What can I really say about this game? I mean, it's a lot like Outbreak File 1, only the enemies are fresh. There are different enemies, like this one, I think it's called Nyx. It's really cool. It's like a plant slash human slash abomination. It's really, really cool, and you know, obviously if you had PS2, you'd be able to play on multiplayer and whatever. There still really isn't that much player one status with this game. It doesn't take one player to play this game because it's kind of a little bit unplayable. But you have classic characters that come back, like Marvin Branagh, for example, from Resident Evil 2, and then you have new characters introduced, like Rita Phillips and David Ford, who is a new RPD officer, and you combine all that stuff, it makes for a very, very good game. But the problem is that yes, you have servers now, but back then when the game came out, which is what I'm kind of scoring it on, and my perception of the game, it wasn't up to par in my standards. So I'm sorry guys that like Resident Evil Outbreak, but I'm gonna give it a lower score. Sorry guys. Resident Evil 6 is a very, very difficult game to talk about. I know a lot of people started with Resident Evil 6. Well, actually, most people started with Resident Evil 4, but I'll talk about that later. So, this game was definitely the epitome of the downward spiral of Capcom. The whole shebang, the whole thing that created Resident Evil as a whole. And with that came, you know, they wanted to please all the fans. So, it had an identity crisis, and to me, it wasn't really that playable. I couldn't really... And a lot of the characters I couldn't really relate to, like Chris and Piers, the fact that they had this whole, you know, like military-inspired free-for-all with all the Joavos and stuff like that, and I didn't really like that. The ending was good. The ending was really, really good, actually. It almost brought a tear to my eye. But I love the whole Leon Helena scenario, even though it really didn't make sense. They killed the president. The president turned into a zombie. They were trying to, frame them, with killing the president and whatever. But I think the story that I like most of all is that the Jake and Sherry campaign, because you hadn't seen Sherry for many, many years, since 1998 when Resident Evil 2 came out, and now Sherry's this blossoming young girl. She just, she flourishes, and she talks about how she gets so many treatments on her because she got infected with the G virus, and then, all that stuff. So, to me, the game is lower on the list just because I didn't even know what it was trying to be. And, Ada's campaign, for example, like, that had all the puzzles and stuff like that, but all the puzzles kind of seemed, like, flustered and a little overdriven. Like, I know this game had a long time between Resident Evil 5 to be like, okay, what do we want this game to be, but I don't think they really captured that, in my opinion. So, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to, Resident Evil Revelations 2. Now, this game is kind of debatable. It's been on some top 10 spots and stuff like that. I consider it to be a little lower just because I feel like the game wasn't really all that interesting. Like, you had, it's getting back to its survival horror roots, and it's typical slow zombies again, all that stuff. When I think about it, it's like, if you play it single player, it's not that great. But if you play it multiplayer, it's really fun. When you have a friend to sit down with and enjoy it with, it's a lot of fun. I will say, though, the inclusion of Barry in the game, Barry is, he is Barry at his finest. Like, everything, he even has inside jokes about the first Resident Evil. It's great. And, it incorporates his daughter, because now Barry's older, he has a daughter, and they have a cool backstory, and they don't really get along as father and daughter. I thought that was really cool. But the final boss, it didn't make sense. Who the fuck is Alex Wesker? Who the fuck is she? She was never mentioned. And, the fact that they killed Wesker off, it just felt like they kind of wanted another Wesker around just to fill the slot. But, there was no mention of her before, and it just doesn't make any sense to me, like, plot-wise. So what can I really say about Resident Evil 0? It's a great game. It misses the mark at a lot of points, which I'll go over in a little bit. But, from the beginning opening segment, which, it says so much about the characters that came before Chris and Jill into the Spencer Mansion, into the area. And the train segment itself is great. It's phenomenal, but it falls off at a lot of points. Like, Billy, he's an uninteresting character. He has a bunch of tattoos on his arm, but he has a little bit of backstory. I just can't relate to him as a person. I really can't. And Rebecca is very, very inconsistent. In RE1 Remake, she was this timid, shy little girl that Chris has to get out of trouble all the time. But in this game, she's going through the same shit, pretty much, same enemies, but she's, like, all confident and cocky and trying to prove that she's not a rookie and trying to prove that she's not a little girl, and, it just kind of misses the mark for me. It just doesn't make any sense. But, the biggest problems that I have with this game are the enemies. The monkeys, the eliminators, shittiest enemy bar none. Every single boss, they're generic. Besides the scorpion on the train, the giant scorpion is fucking gold. I love scorpions. I thought that was a badass boss. But every single boss after that was kind of just like, like, I've seen this before. So in the game, you just drop your items right on the floor. You have to pick them all up, move them to another area, the other end of the map once you get farther in the game. It's annoying, and there's no item boxes to put them in, so you're just like, oh, what do I do? Also, when you try and pick up the items, the hitboxes suck. And, you'll end up picking up an ink ribbon if you're trying to pick up a shotgun, or vice versa. It just gets a little, especially if you're trying to speedrun, it gets a little annoying. And also, when it comes to speedrunning, it's so hard to dodge these enemies. It's so hard because their hitboxes are giant, as opposed to the items being tiny and little and whatever. So, that's why I rank this at this part of the list. Resident Evil Revelations 1. Hey guys, do you like boats? I like boats. Do you like Resident Evil games that take place on a boat? Me too! But this isn't your game, because this is where Resident Evil actually has a Resident Evil game on a boat that's actually done right. Oh my god, yeah! This game is really, really fun. It takes you into a different direction. This is when survival horror was starting to come back. It wasn't all about action or how many enemies you can kill in an area. It was scary again, which was great for the fans, you know? It really, really was. It's a hard game. It's a hard game, but it's fun. The only problem is there's not a whole lot memorable besides one boss, the comms officer. When he yells, "Mayday, Mayday," and then you shoot the door open and he comes out for the first time, you're just like, what the fuck is that thing? You think it's a human being, but no, it's this giant fish thing with this giant tube mouth that will swallow you whole if you get anywhere close to it. So you have to attack it from a distance. So yeah, that's Revelations 1. Well, now we are in the top 10. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to talk about this next game, Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles. I fucking love this game. It's so good. It's just like Umbrella Chronicles, but like 2 or 3 times better. It's dark, it's gritty, it almost has a reboot-ish feel to it. The cinematics are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Carlos sounds really, really good in this game. Like, really, really good. He doesn't sound the typical, you know, like Spanish dude, you know, being all foxy with the ladies. No, he sounds like a serious, like, mercenary who is trying to rescue people, and he's very serious, and it's really cool. It's very, very dark and gritty, and the game starts out really, really cool too, in like a Resident Evil 5-esque environment where you have Leon and you have Krauser, and it tells a story of how Krauser got the scar on his arm from Resident Evil 4 and everything. So it's a great game. I definitely recommend it. You'd have to buy a Wii and whatever, but yeah, fantastic game. Absolutely fantastic. Resident Evil 5 is number 9. So what can't I say about this game? What can I say about this game? You're about to find out. Yeah, I did not like this game at first. When it first came out, I heard all the things that I heard about it. Basically, it was just an amalgamation of how I felt. When I first played it, it was like, oh, this is too actiony, this is stupid, blah, blah, blah. And especially, well, it was probably because I was playing it single player, but, you know, because single player, it's great and all, it gets the job done, but, yo, this game blew me away when I actually played through the game with a friend. Oh my god, this has the best co-op in any shooter, and pretty much any game, period, honestly. Like, and I'm so confident about saying that. And just the battles in general, the bosses are beautiful looking. The graphics, beautiful. Everything, all the cinematics, beautiful. And the Wesker fight, like, towards the end of the game, blew my fucking balls off. This is something that you need to pick up, and if you don't have it, pick it up, because it's a phenomenal fucking game. Alright, now we get into the nitty-gritty. Number 8. Resident Evil Code Veronica X, or Code Veronica if you played on the Sega Dreamcast. Basically, this game was fucking amazing. There were a few things that I had a little bit of, you know, trouble with, like those moth bosses in that Antarctic little hallway right there. Yeah, that sucks. But, and also Steve, he's annoying as fuck, but the problem is that I kind of grew into him. He's still iconic. I mean, if you think about it, you know, a lot of people say that Steve sucks, yeah, but he's memorable. I mean, he's memorable. Also, the soundtrack to this game, oh, mwah, delicious. This soundtrack is fucking amazing. Second best soundtrack in all of the Resident Evil games, period. I don't care what anybody says. This game is so good, but the problem is that it's really hard, but it's really easy to fuck your run up if you don't put certain items in the box at a certain time, or if you put too many items on a certain person at the same time when you switch from Claire to Chris. So there's a lot of room for fucking up, but overall the game is so good. It's lengthy, but it's phenomenal, and I definitely recommend this game to anybody that is a Resident Evil fan. It's easy to access. You're gonna have a lot of fucking fun throughout this game. Everything's great. Everything, I promise. Rolling in at number 7, RE7. It's kind of fitting, isn't it? But here are the good things about this game. And there's a shit ton of good things about this game. The first person worked for this game. Not a whole lot of people thought it was going to. The direction that they went in the game Literally, they brought survival horror back from the dead, literally. There were no zombies in this game, but everything just flowed. The first part, the first part of the game, once you go outside and you're in your car and you're talking about how, you know, your wife Mia left 3 years ago and you thought she was dead, but then she gives you an email and everything's all good, you're looking for her, and then boom, once you get into that mansion and you find her and she's all distressed and like, you know, like, help me, like, I don't know where I am, daddy's coming, like, shit. That blew my mind. And then she switches into this crazy demon possessed like monster, and she's your wife. Like, what are you supposed to do? So you have to shoot her up and almost kill her, and then, oh man, the whole game is great. The Baker family, excellent. Jack is just a total monster. He's like Nemesis, but just he's a crazy southern asshole. He's the best. And Marguerite with the fly hive in her snatch, like, glorious. The son, Lucas, man, he's a mastermind. So awesome. But there are a few bad things also with this game. The basic enemies, the molded, they're great and all once you first see them, but then after a while, you kind of are just like, what the fuck do I do now? There's no new enemies. Like, it's a little annoying, because they didn't have any new enemy types besides the boss fights, which are fucking excellent. And the last third of the game kind of fell apart once you get onto the ship, the sunken ship. It really falls apart. It's just kind of like sluggish. Like, really, do I have to go through this again? Like, this is stupid. And then the last part of the game, the last and final boss, once you find Evelyn and you kill her, it's the easiest boss fight in the game, which is like surprising and really stupid. And then you see Chris come from the helicopter. That is not my Chris. Nobody asked for him to look like that. He looks like shit. Yeah. But to end this on a positive note, it was a definite, like, really great return to survival horror, and what made Resident Evil in the first place. They brought back the item boxes. You know, so many really good things in this game. It had excellent potential. I just wish they would have capitalized on a lot of what they wanted to make in the game work for the last third of the game. Number 6. Okay, so this is Resident Evil 2 Remake. As much of a shock as it is to you guys, it is to me, because the top 5 don't really have any problems with them. They're great games, but I've dissected this in my mind, and I feel like the Resident Evil 2 Remake, although it was a good remake, it had a lot of bad points. First off, the Moth boss didn't exist. Even though it was a small part in Resident Evil 2, it was still really memorable to me. There were no spiders. A lot of the game was lacking on the core fundamentals that was the original Resident Evil 2. There was barely any communication between Claire and Leon during the whole A and B scenario, and it just had a lot of missed opportunities. It had a really shitty B scenario. It was pretty much the same thing as A scenario, but changed a little bit. And I feel like the Ivy bosses, they were definitely not the same as the original. I wish they would have just remodeled them after the original game, gave them the same characteristics, but made them hard like the Ivies in the remake. I feel like that would have been a really good fun experience, because people are just like, oh yeah, do you remember the Ivy? Well, he looks 10 times better. You know, they could have made him like a Demogorgon type thing, and it definitely didn't work. But the positives are the characters are a lot more fleshed out, and I don't mean Leon and Claire. I mean like Ada and Sherry and just Kendo in general. Just the Kendo's story, his side story, just almost made me want to cry. It was beautiful. The fact that his little daughter, who is just like the love of his life and like a beautiful girl, like is turning into a zombie. Like, that to me pulled on my heartstrings like nothing else. Sherry's story with the Chief Brian Irons was just really crazy. Like, Brian became like almost sadistic scumbag. Just, you wanted to hate him. You wanted to like, punch him in the mouth. Like, it was such a great experience for me to like see those characters and have them have a new twist on their story. And a lot of things, like, they made slow zombies scary again. They really did. Like, you get a headshot on them, they're not down. Get another headshot on them, they're not down. They were scary and you felt it. throughout the whole game, it was a very, very dark and gritty reboot, or just remake in general. Like, everything was scarier, the lighting was dimmed down low, as opposed to the first one, and it was just a really, really good game overall. I do have to say, the visuals in this game are unbeaten, and I feel like they will definitely forever be unbeaten. Everything looks fucking beautiful. All the enemies are gorgeous. Boss battles, hard, but gorgeous. Like, just, you need to strategize in order to kill these things. So, yeah, that's my take on Resident Evil 2 Remake. It is number 6, did not make the top 5, but it's an A+ in my book. Okay, guys, so we're getting into the top 5 here. To start off the top 5, number 5, Resident Evil 1 1996. I love this game. I love it. And if it wasn't for this game, Resident Evil wouldn't even exist. It wouldn't even be a thing. And I would hate a world where Resident Evil doesn't exist. It's an iconic series. This series overall is one of the greatest video game series of history. It's iconic, and this game started it out with a bang. All the enemies are flawless. Some of them are hard, like the hunters, and some of them are quick and annoying and go up onto the ceiling, like the Chimera. You got a shark zombie, which I didn't even think was a thing. You got a plant zombie in Plant 42. Amazing. And then, as soon as you get into the mansion, the first enemy that you see is a zombie. And boy, when that fucking zombie's head turns, oh man, it's the scariest fucking thing alive. And then once you get in a certain corridor, you know, the dog corridor, basically, you go through, the glass breaks, and a fucking zombie dog comes through and just wrecks your shit. You don't expect it. Classic jump scare. One of the best games in the series, but I only have to give it number 5 just because I know you guys have a problem with the voice acting, and that's not the reason why it's number 5. I love the voice acting. I think it's great. The reason why I think it's number 5 is because it hasn't really aged particularly well. It is the first in the series, very iconic. You know, it's very clippy and kind of Porygon-ish. Like, you don't get the feel like you first played it the first time, you know, back in 1996. But an amazing game. Let's move on. Alright, number 4. Wow, this game is the game that I played the most. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. And oh man, is this game really fucking good. It's the end of an era, you know, the last game in the trilogy of 3. And this is when Raccoon City is completely wiped off the map. At the end of the game, you have this giant missile that just launches to the city and just blows everything up because the city is just infected with zombies and all kinds of creatures and all that shit. It's just so hard to even bounce back from that. How do you even do that? Well, honestly, the game is, you know, one of my favorites in the series. That's why it's ranked so high. Oh my god, the best part of this game, and the only part that really actually hammers the point down that this is a really phenomenal game, is Nemesis. Nemesis is there to kill all the remaining STARS members, completely eliminate them from the first game and onwards. Just like, he's a brute. This guy does not stop. You can put him down for a little bit, but he'll come right back up and just keep stalking you through the whole entire city. And once you hear those words, that word, STARS, like, you immediately know, oh my god, I'm in for it. And then he kills Brad Vickers, sticks a purple fucking tentacle right through his head, and he's dead. And then you're just like, fuck, I gotta get away from this guy. This guy is not my friend at all. There is one thing about this game that I will say though, it's the dodge mechanic. The dodge mechanic is like, it's hard for me at least to pinpoint how to use the mechanic. But sometimes when I'm holding down the fire button, it just kind of works sometimes, like when I'm facing Nemesis or whatever, like I'll kind of be like, and just go to the side and, you know, get away from Nemesis. So it's a mechanic, it works, but it's kind of confusing to most people. But I love this game is phenomenal, and I feel like this is the most underrated game in the series. It's phenomenal, so let's go. Next one. Okay, next up at number 3, it's Resident Evil 4. So this game, I did not like at first, just because, you know, I heard all this shit about it. But this game is brilliant. Everything about this game is just mind-blowing. The new mechanic that they added to reinvigorate the series worked. Everything worked, especially the merchant. The merchant, he goes, what are you doing, stranger? You want to buy something? Like, that to me is just the most iconic thing that there is in Resident Evil, period. Like, that voice was just awesome. You know, and when you meet him for the first time, he just kind of comes out of nowhere. You think he's a boss, and then boom, he just sells you shit. And you could sell him stuff, and you can buy stuff from him, and it's just a really cool dynamic in the game. You know, but people can argue that, you know, this game definitely started the more action-y approach to the game, which, I mean, I see to a point, but it's a great game nonetheless. Every boss is great. Every enemy is great. And there's one enemy that I want to take a definite nod to. It's called the Regenerator. These things you have to hit at a certain point in their body to put them down, and they make the creepiest noise out of any boss or any enemy to begin with, any basic enemy. They're crazy. And then you got the upgraded form, which is, you know, they're harder to put down, and they have spikes all over them. And then when you shoot them, the spikes come out, and they're just one giant jittery mess. It's great. But there is the one little problem that I have personally with the game. It's Ashley. Ashley, it sucks. It feels like one giant, you know, like, rescue mission. You know, I mean, the whole game is a rescue mission. You have to rescue her and whatever. But it feels like you have to kind of, like, hold her hand throughout the whole process, and she's kind of helpless. So it gets a little bit annoying at points, but this game is fucking awesome. I mean, it's just awesome. From beginning to end, there is no, you know, good or there is no bad. It's just, you know, full on, like, story and just beautiful art. And, yeah, that's why I rank this game so high on the list. Okay, so, number 2 is, Resident Evil 2. This game, man, this game blows me away every time I play it. You know that game that when you get really, really drunk, and, like, you want to play a video game, and you're just like, I don't know what to play. My go-to is Resident Evil 2, the original, because this game is fucking awesome. I have a blast playing this game every single time. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this game. It's perfect in every way. Pretty much the start of the game is, like, you meet Claire, and then everything's shitty because there's zombies all over the place. You're riding in a police car. All of a sudden, a tanker hits your car, and both of you guys have to get out before it explodes, and then once the explosion hits, the start of the game, the game starts, and there's a horde of zombies right by you, and you have to strategize a way through these zombies with tank controls, which is really fucking hard. And I guarantee you, when you first picked up this game, you were just like, what the hell do I do? And it's a blast. And then, you know, everything about this game is just so great. I mean, the William Birkin is the most iconic, like, boss ever. Seriously. The first time you meet him, he's like this brute, and he smashes you with a pipe and stuff like that, but then he transforms and transforms and transforms, and it's like a bloody, gruesome mess every time he transforms, but every time he transforms, he gets stronger and bigger and just massive. Like, this guy is crazy. Mr. X, same thing. You know, like, you try and knock him down, you can knock him down, get some ammo off of him, but he'll get back up, and then towards the end of the game, you know, he turns into this fucking thing with a giant claw that just slashes the shit out of you. You don't even know what to do. And it's a great game. Iconic to a T. And the Licker, when you first meet the Licker, oh boy. When you're in that corridor and you hear that, and then the tongue comes out, and then you're just like, oh fuck. And then this thing with just claws just kind of, you know, just slithers over to you, and you're just like, what do I do? You know, this game is fucking great, and every single time I play it, I'm just nostalgia. It's nostalgia, and this game actually, besides number 1, the original, this game has aged very well. I can play it and be happy and enjoy my time with it. The music is great. It's so iconic. That save room theme is probably one of the best in the series. Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from this game is when Brian Irons says, "Everybody's gonna die." Like, it's great. He's just the typical heel. I love it. Basically, the game that that makes it so you know the story of how Raccoon City got infected with the zombie virus in the first place. It's awesome, and if you haven't played it, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life, man? Number 1. Haha, I got you guys. It's not number 1 yet. I do want to shout out to an honorable mention that I feel like is worth noting. It's not a complete game, so that's why I didn't put it on this list, but it's honorable in its own right. Resident Evil 1.5 is what the Resident Evil community calls it. It's what Resident Evil 2 would have been if they hadn't have scrapped it, which was it had a really cool design. A lot of things from it actually came into the Resident Evil 2 remake. There was a gorilla, a zombie gorilla that you had to fight, which was fucking cool. And then they had spider zombies with just giant spider tentacles latched onto the back. Super dope. Instead of Claire being in Resident Evil 2, it was Elza Walker, and she was a motorcycle enthusiast, and she just somehow stumbled into Raccoon City. And William Birkin looked a lot different, and just the whole idea of the game and all the gameplay footage that I saw just really struck a chord with me, and it made sense, and it's a game that I would still enjoy to play right now. The zombies looked a little bit different. They had like red eyes, and and there were like hordes of zombies as opposed to just 1 or 2 zombies in an area, or maybe 3. So yeah, definitely an honorable mention. If you haven't already, check it out on YouTube. Yeah, it's a really cool concept of what Resident Evil could have been. Okay, now we're gonna head into number 1. Finally, you guys have been waiting all this time for number 1. Number 1 is Resident Evil 1 Remake. Here's why. Because Resident Evil 1 Remake is perfect. Perfect in every way. And it is the best survival horror game of all time. I don't care who has anything to say about it. If you don't like it, well, that's too bad. This game is phenomenal in a bunch of ways. It takes an older, dated game, and it just transforms it and adds to it, and takes everything from the old game and brings it into the new game, but also brings more stuff into the game, and still makes it relevant, and still makes it fun to play. But the zombies, you can take them down, and it's really cool to see their dead bodies there the whole time, but you think they're dead. They're not. They're coming back, and they come back with a fury. They grow into these things called Crimson Heads. Now these Crimson Heads, they grow long-ass claws, their teeth get bigger, and they start running at you. Not like the typical slow zombie you think. Yeah, you're exactly right. So basically the whole dog sequence in the original Resident Evil, you think they're coming out as soon as you get into that room now. But as soon as you go back into that room to get out to the main hall, yeah, that's when they come. And it's a total and complete fuck you to everybody who thinks they know the original Resident Evil. It adds Lisa Trevor, which is great. She's a crazy demon thing, almost. Like, she has tentacles coming from her face. She's like this tyrant that just doesn't die. You can unload as much ammo as you want into this chick. She doesn't die. But the only way you can take out zombies in this game for good and not have them turn into Crimson Heads is you either gotta shoot them in the head, blow their head off, or you have to light them up with some canteen fuel, set them on fire. That's the only way you can do it. And it's a hard task, especially when you're playing on hard. When you run out of canteen, what are you gonna do? You got a bunch of Crimson Heads on your case, and that's some bullshit. This game is absolutely perfect. It adds defensive items. It prolongs the game. It makes everything look so much more beautiful. And especially when it got ported to the PS4 online, it just made the game even more beautiful. It was like a remaster of a remake, and it's the best remake I think that will ever be in history of film and video games. And people should really look at that and be like, wow, okay, this is what we need to put in our remake going forward. So it's a stepping stone for video games, for survival horror, and for remakes. So that's why I chose that for number 1, folks.